I want an answer. What is the meaning of life? Anybody?
Yeah, getting the most out of each and every day that passes.
Sounds good. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. All right. Learning.
There is no inherent meaning.
Get out of here. How about, have you ever heard Ernest Hemingway's definition? Life is a tragedy. And what happened to him? Yeah, he offed himself. Maybe that's the same definition of life that Marilyn Monroe and Michael Hutchence and Kurt Cobain and so many others who have offed themselves have had. How about, have you ever heard of film director Roberto Benigni? What did he direct? Life is Beautiful, right? And then as he got his Oscar, he danced across the stages, across the tables to get to the stage. You know, and he's quite a happy guy. So I guess we all have our own definition of life, if you will. But I'm trying to think of maybe one word or phrase that makes us think all the same answer. And the best I could do is I came up with a definition that biologists use. Biologists say life is irritable. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean how you felt last night after you didn't hook up. I'm kidding. Sir, I'm kidding. It doesn't mean irritable in the sense of irritated. It means the environment does stuff to us, and then we do stuff back on purpose. Follow me? So what does that imply? It implies a decision. Does this make sense? So a rock is not alive because it can't decide to roll uphill. It passively rolls downhill. A tree is alive because in a crude biochemical kind of way, it does make a decision. Its branches grow purposely toward sunlight, not toward shade. And we're way more complex than trees, hopefully. Right? So the definition of life is that it makes decisions. So what does this mean for you? Have there been times in your life, maybe like my little brother, where you kind of hang out and you don't do much? You don't make decisions on purpose, or you let other people make decisions for you, or you let the woman you are trying to connect with make all the decisions, do all the commanding. What are you if you stop making decisions? Ultimately, you're dead. If you never ate again or drank again, you would be dead in about 9 days. All right? Does this make sense? So the more decisions you make, the more alive you are. All right? All right. So, what if not making decisions and being passive leads gradually toward what psychoanalysts call developmental arrest? And if you're passive enough, we could put death all the way at the bottom here. Well, through observing ego, paying attention to yourself, keeping a journal, by the way, is observing ego. It's you commenting on you, even as you live. If you do observing ego and you head upward, what is this up here? Life and growth. So up arrow is life and growth. Down arrow is developmental arrest, ultimately death of your purpose in life. Death of what your life could have become. Okay? This is staying a boy, as David D'Angelo was saying earlier. And every decision we've ever made is one of two things. Any guesses? Good or bad? Something like that. Words I use are destructive or constructive. either toward yourself or others or both. Okay? Now, a linchpin of this method for solving any psychological problem you could have comes from a theory of economics called game theory. Has anyone heard of A Beautiful Mind? Yeah, you've heard of that? Do you remember the scene where they're going to approach the hot girls that just walked in the room? Really hot girl? Okay. Win-win versus win-lose thinking is what won John Nash the Nobel Prize for work in 1967. Destructive thinking and behavior is win-lose behavior in game theory. Constructiveness is win-win. Okay? Every decision you've ever made has either been at least a little bit destructive or a little bit constructive, or it wasn't a decision. How about that? So there is a way you can start to use observing ego to be watching yourself, monitoring yourself, and picking apart maybe the bigger decisions you make. Make sure that they are constructive. All kinds of words go under this word destructive. All words that describe boy-like thinking, childish thinking. Okay? Some of the most important ones are things like immediate gratification, impatience, selfishness. Okay? In order for me to feel like I'm a winner, someone has to feel like a loser. It's the only way when you do destructiveness. In order for me to be right, somebody else has to be wrong, or I can't feel right. Do you know any people like that in your life, including sometimes you? I'm sometimes that way too. I have to practice this every day too. Ultimately, you end up with a worldview here of scarcity. It's a way of seeing the world as a scarce place. There aren't enough hot women to go around. Now, this may be true in Denver, where I'm from. No, I'm sure this, all right, I'll keep looking. But scarcity mentality is part of destructiveness. A constructive win-win mentality is mature. It is patient. It's all about delayed gratification. It is self-respecting, but not selfish. And it does put self first. Okay? Have you ever heard the speech they give you at the beginning of an airline flight? The flight attendant comes out and they say, hey, if we drop cabin pressure, there might be a mask that comes down. And what do they always tell you? You put yours on first. That's mature. Because what good are you giving it away to others? You could have saved 5 more people. So you got to treat yourself first. If you ever hear someone else tell you, you're hurting me by not, treating me like a queen, wrong. This is a problem. You got to treat yourself well first, or you have nothing to give to other people. Similar to, what if I said, do you want $1 million? I'll write you a check. It's going to bounce. Was that generous of me? Mature of me? No, because I got nothing to back it up. Okay, so you got to fill yourself up first. Well, ultimately, adult men see the world as a place of abundance. Okay? Say that you and a friend have equal jobs and equal training. Your friend gets a promotion in your company. If you look at that in a childish, boy-like, destructive way, you see the world as a place of scarcity, and you might secretly harbor some jealousy about that. Because after all, I'm trained the same as him. I've worked hard too. Why did he get the promotion? Okay, well, that's boy-like thinking. It sees the world as a scarce place for resources. But if you're a mature adult man, you're glad for your friend because you see the world as a place of abundance. And you say, well, we're equally trained. If he got that promotion, then so could I. Even if it's not with this company, maybe it'll be with some other company. Does this make sense? Everything you do, decision-wise, is either destructive or constructive. Through observing ego, you pay attention to yourself as you're living. You start identifying, maybe even journaling, about the types of decisions you're making. And make lots of them. Because the more passive you are, the less alive you are. Right? Which leads me to something. There's a quote that I always use. Well, it's me quoting myself. I just remembered. Psychological age does not match chronological age. Now, you can see that said in many ways in many books. Psychological age doesn't match chronological age. So I'm sure you've all had a boss or relative or somebody in your life who can't behave older than age 15, right? Or somebody who can't behave older than age 25, even though they're chronologically 50, right? It's because they got developmentally arrested at a certain age, okay? Well, it's all of our goal to keep moving along psychologically, no matter what your chronological age. And you can restart your growth at any age. I've heard of 80-year-old ladies entering psychoanalysis for the first time. You might say, what's the point? Well, there's a big point. Remember what we talked about regarding death and dying? Your goal is you got to reach fulfillment in your life before your time comes. Okay? It takes maturing. This is a diagram I call my anxiety map. Okay? The way it works is anxiety and its mastery is crucial to your masculinity. There are only two possible causes of anxiety in life: loss or threatened loss, or lack of confidence or lack of trust. Okay? Once you are anxious, there are only three things you can do with anxiety. You can do nothing with it, or you can make a decision about it. If you do nothing with your anxiety, it likes to go through a process called the fight or flight response, which is something that drives us to do all kinds of impulsive behaviors like overeating, overspending, workaholism, addictions, alcoholism. This is all caused by us being passive about our anxiety. Ironically, the very instinct called the fight or flight instinct, which is designed to save our lives, if we're passive, we just let anxiety have its way with us, it ends up driving us to do all these things that are eventually deadly, like addictions, overeating, etc. Instead of doing that, it's important to be decisive. Use your anxiety on purpose. Okay? And when you do that, you can think in a destructive way or a constructive way with it. Destructive way of using your anxiety involves victim thinking, poor me mentality. I'm hopeless, I'm helpless. Please, please, why don't you help me? I'm dependent on you. I'm dependent on my friends. I'm dependent on a woman. If you use anxiety in this way, guess what? It ends up causing even more loss in your life. Because if you act like a victim all the time, act like a martyr all the time, you end up losing all your friends. Instead of doing either this passive, impulsive way with anxiety, instead of being this victim, the way to go is to use the constructive method of using anxiety, which is called courage. If you've seen the movie Saving Private Ryan, it defines the word courage very well. It says courage is do the right thing, which leaves us with no excuses, because that means courage is just a decision. If you recall from the beginning, if you're alive and breathing, by definition, you're making decisions. You're able to make decisions. And it means at any point you can make the decision of courage. Do what is right, even if you're afraid, even if you're terrified. Every time you do courage, you can actually even measure the units of it. You will get confidence in reward for your courage. No matter what happens in response to you, no matter what happens in the audience, If I were afraid to do public speaking, it wouldn't matter if I fainted, threw up, or maybe it would matter to you. But it wouldn't matter what happens to me or whether you don't like me or don't laugh at me or whatever. The fact that I dared to go do what I'm afraid of gets me 100% of the time units of confidence. Okay? There almost wasn't enough time. Maybe you can ask me questions later about how these things tie together. But if you learn to master how your personal boundary works, you get good using the word no and catching yourself in the act of suffering. Whenever you burn energy wishing you controlled the uncontrollable, you're wasting your time and energy. If you stop doing that and learn how to use anxiety in a courageous way that will build confidence to fill your boundary up with every time you do it, then you have power. That's the definition of mature masculine power, is doing things in a constructive way with your decisions, having a solid boundary that you can open and close depending on what kind of deals are coming your way. If a win-lose deal comes your way, you need to be able to slam the door shut of your boundary on it. If I say to you, why don't you come over to my place and wash my car? I won't give you anything back for that. What kind of deal is that? It's a win-lose. I win, you lose. But if I say, I'm going to spend an hour on you, you're going to spend an hour on me, I enjoy teaching, I get a lot out of that, I feel good. Hopefully you get some information out of this. What kind of deal is that, hopefully? A win-win. Slam the door shut on win-lose deals that come your way from people. Open the door to win-win deals that come your way. If a person changes from being destructive to trying to be a little more constructive, open the door up again. You might end up with a best friend, or maybe with a wife. You've got to be able to open and shut that door. But you're preserving this core masculine energy here called confidence, which you will fill yourself up with every time you do courage. Okay? So if you have fears under here that you are unconfident about, might be fear of approaching women, fear of changing careers. Has anyone ever feared breaking up with a woman? Well, how do you solve that? You break up with her. You trust. This man said that comment. You trust the men around you who are more mature than you, who will guide you like Obi-Wan Kenobi through your initiation. And you could, Mr. Miyagi, oh yeah. How about Pai Mei? Have you seen Kill Bill Part 2 yet? It's awesome. But if you trust science, at the least, this is hardcore stuff here. When you do courage 100% of the time, this is almost never seen in science for something to be 100% true and happen for you 100% of the time. You almost never see it. But in teaching 3,000 people this material, I have never seen it not work or help. When you do courage, you will get confidence. And that is the thing that you store in your boundary and you radiate out to women. I've heard stories about people like JFK and Bill Clinton and Ronald Reagan, and when they would walk in the room, people would feel it. Even with their backs turned, people would feel power walking in the room. Well, what causes that? Well, it's because these men have incredibly good personal boundaries that they are politically adept with, that they only open up to deals that benefit both me and others. They close that door to deals that are no good. And they have lots of confidence stored up inside. That's what you feel being radiated. That's mature masculine power.
We ready? Questions?
First, what's your website?
It's drpaul.net, DOCTORPAUL.net.
I want to know was about on your durable fulfillment diagram, how would you go about mastering emotional energy to get happiness?
Well, the way you, may I on the board?
You seem to like that thing. You like to
I
clean
love
it off,
the board.
So kick its ass.
All right. I just told you in 5 minutes how to master anxiety. The way to master anxiety is you use courage, using this energy to power you in doing courage. You will win confidence, okay? The other end of the spectrum of negative emotions is anger. I have another diagram I haven't shown you that shows you how to master anger by being assertive instead of aggressive and instead of just getting depressed. Okay? If you can master both anxiety and anger, these are two opposite emotions on the spectrum of negative emotions. If you master two ends of any spectrum, what do you master?
All of it?
Everything.
Right.
Okay? Every negative emotion you've ever had has had a little bit of anxiety to it and a certain amount of anger to it. If I tell you I'm pissed off, that might go right there. If I tell you I feel guilty, that's more anxious. If I tell you I feel bored, it's a little bit more angry than anxious. If I tell you I'm terrified, that might go out there. Any word you use for any negative emotion, you can master by turning anxiety into courage and then into confidence. We're turning anger into assertiveness, which means you go get your needs met and you don't use other people to go get them met. You go do it. Turn that into well-being. Well-being and confidence are the two halves of self-esteem, and that's what you fill yourself up with.
All right.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
I covered that in the book, The Tortoise and Hare Quit the Rat Race. It's my book about this whole theory.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
I pretty much understood the last diagram pretty well, except for there's a little square in the middle that where lack of trust was sitting on top of confidence.
Confidence,
And
yeah.
I didn't. I don't see. I don't understand that relationship. I don't understand
Okay.
what's going on there.
Okay. This lack of trust is the same as lack of confidence. Lack of trust in the world around you, lack of trust in your own abilities is the same as lacking confidence. They're the same thing. I just labeled that box with two similar phrases. Okay? If that tank is near empty of confidence, you're anxious. You're in trouble. You are probably overeating, overspending, maybe addicted to something. You're also probably acting like a victim, suffering even more loss. If you go face your fears with courage, maybe start small, you'll see, you'll measure actual units of confidence building in yourself. And that's why people that use David D's materials, it's so awesome because you can sort of take it at your own pace. You might go out and approach one woman on a given night, and you feel a little bit of boost for having done that. You can measure it. And then from there, you can go approach 2 the next night, 3 the next night. How many women did we approach last night? Never mind.